Carol, on the Middle East, the latest headlines coming from the President of the United States, posting on Truth Social, acknowledging what we all sort of knew just a few moments ago here, that the attack by Iran onto U.S. assets in Qatar, that most of those missiles had been intercepted, no casualties, no physical damage.
No, exactly, right? This kind of limited impact, if you will. But what's interesting is investors, just the risk on trade building momentum in these last few minutes of trading. I keep refreshing my DES page on the S&P 500 because increasingly it's more and more names, 405 now to the upside as we count down to the close here.
Yeah, buying into the close, and we're seeing equities tick higher after the president posted that to social media. Perhaps there's optimism that there is de-escalation or will be de-escalation. The president saying perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same.
Yeah, even yields are coming off their lows of the session as well. You know, this kind of market reaction would have been really, really difficult to expect 24, 48 hours ago.
Which brings the point why it's so hard to hedge geopolitical risk, right? Like, you would have had a very different take, say, on Saturday if you wanted to hedge any kind of downside for the S&P, and you would have been completely stopped out.
Absolutely. Here and now, you have markets sort of feeling themselves, thinking that at least the worst case scenario is off the table. A big part of the reason why you saw such a big downdraft today in the oil markets, with WTI drifting lower by about 8%. The VIX relatively unchanged on the day, and big gains in U.S. equity markets. The Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ each posting gains of about 1% on the day. The Russell 2000 making similar moves of about 1.1%. And Carol, Dow Transports, that's your outperformer amongst the major indices, up by 2.25%.
All right, fascinating to see that. S&P 500, back there I go. 399 names gaining ground in today's session. A lot of the uptick towards the last 10, 15 minutes of trading. 102 Scarlet to the downside, 2 unchanged.
Yeah, pretty lopsided advanced decline line, and you see that reflected in the IMAP as well. This is 11 sectors in the S&P 500, and only one sector finishing in the red, one of the smaller sectors, and that is energy. In fact, you have 22 out of the 23 big cap energy names losing ground. Kinder Morgan was the only one to buck the decline.
All right, fascinating. A lot of green there. Tesla, definitely an outperformer. Number one gainer, folks, in the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100. That stock up about 8.25% in today's session. Biggest intraday rise since late April. The company coming out, launching its much anticipated and long promised driverless taxi service to some riders on Sunday. Analysts highlighting the low-key and limited nature of the rollout of the service in Austin, Texas. The debut was quote-unquote, largely uneventful, which is always good, free of major missteps, with the start of revenue service making a critical milestone, for bulls in the stock, and they definitely moved into it in a big way. Northern Trust, want to point out that one, up about 8% in today's session. Shares rallying initially after the Wall Street Journal came out earlier today and reported that Bank of New York Mellon had approached the company in recent days on a possible merger. So if indeed we see some kind of tie-up between these two, you're talking about two of the largest custodian banks in the world, with a combined entity scale that would help it compete with global asset managers like BlackRock and Vanguard. So we'll be keeping our eye on that one. And then I had to throw in Circle Internet. I mean, why not? Up another 9.6% at its highs. It had rallied 24% today, gaining almost 10% in today's session. So we're talking about a $65 billion market cap company, up about 90% or so in the past 3 trading days, and it's up more than 800% since its IPO on June 5th. So, yeah. There you go, Circle.
Hey, by the way, we're going to have the Circle co-founder, Sean Neville, on the program a little bit later.
Nice.
All right.
Nice.
Good booking.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some of the decliners today. Hims & Hers Health fell more than 34% today. It was the most intraday ever. This after Novo Nordisk scrapped its partnership with Hims & Hers. It has been selling compounded obesity drugs on marketing concerns. Novo Nordisk said Hims was, quote, using deceptive marketing to sell copycat versions of its obesity blockbuster Wegovy. Hims CEO Andrew Dudum on X called Novo executive comments, quote, misleading. He said Novo had been pressuring Hims to steer patients to Wegovy, regardless of whether it was clinically best for patients. He said, quote, we refuse to be strong-armed, and that Hims will continue to offer a wide range of treatments. Interestingly enough, we saw Novo down. 5.5%
I'm
today,
absolutely
too.
fascinated by this
Yeah.
story because, it does seem like the perfect marriage, right? I mean, you talk about this idea of people wanting better access to the drugs they want, not necessarily having to go through the traditional doctor process. And, of course, Novo and other drug companies wanting a more of a direct line to their consumers. The fact that, I don't know, something went on behind the scenes that either Novo wasn't happy with or maybe it was Hims and Hers wasn't happy with, I think says a lot. And it makes you wonder about what these partnerships might look like in the future, if at all.
Yeah, I think it also says a lot that the fact that Novo ADRs fell, more than 5% as a result of this too. Obviously, investors thought it was a good way for the company to get this medication into more hands. So, yeah, again, we'll see what those partnerships do look like in the future. Moving on to Supermicro Computer, shares fell 9.8%. This after the company said it plans to offer $2 billion in convertible senior notes due in 2030. The company plans to use the proceeds to repurchase shares as well as fund growth and business expansion. This according to an announcement earlier today. And finally, ADRs of Compass Pathways. This is a psychedelic drug company. This is a medication company, a pharmaceutical company. We should note it's based in the UK.
Are you on psychedelic drugs right now?
It sounds like I am, right?
Just kidding.
Down 49%. It's supposed to treat a form of depression, but the trial disappointed investors. The company said its psilocybin drug reduced depression symptoms by 3.6% on a rating scale compared to a placebo, but Wall Street wanted to see better results. The study saw 258 adults for a change in their symptoms at 6 weeks. This according to a statement from Compass today. Once again, shares down 49%, ADRs.
Oof, biotech special right there.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's get to the bond market here. So really interesting action, buying across the curve, particularly in the front end, yields down 6 basis points. But the journey was really interesting. So off the bat, you had Michelle Bowman of the Fed speaking around 10 o'clock this morning, talking about if inflation kept coming down, a July cut could be in the cards. She also talked about the supplemental leverage ratio, that maybe the Fed will be discussing that on Wednesday. That would reduce potentially the amount of money that banks need to hold to account for risk. Right now, that risk involves treasuries, which, as we know, should be a risk-free asset. And if they can make that the case and not have to hold money against treasuries, then maybe they can actually buy more and have more money to free up loans. So that all kind of playing out within the treasury market. Clearly, we marked the bottom, though, as we started to get these headlines out of President Trump about potentially moving towards peace.
Yeah, congratulations, world. It's time for peace. Putting out a post there on Truth Social. Hey, guys, I don't know if you took a walk in this heat. I had to do crosstown 59th from the west side. I finally had to jump on the subway. It was so nasty. It is 96 degrees right now. But, having said that, I know.
Lightweight. You can make it. How many blocks was it? I took a walk today, too.
And that was
what
in the
time,
morning.
though?
Yeah.
It
was only 83.
What time?
It
was after our meeting. It was like 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Well, you're
Really?
just built of strong stuff. What can I tell you? I'm just a, I don't know.
We were melting down.
A wilting, melting flower. Let's go back to the markets, because I don't know.
I did have a cup of ice in my hand. It's a little trick I have. My wife actually bought me one of these fans you put around your neck. I look ridiculous in this.
You should wear it on the show.
Do you use it?
Huh? Yes, this morning I did use it.
Did it work?
It just blows warm air into your face.
I want to see him do this on the close.
I want to see him do that on the close as well. All right, speaking of the close, just look at these charts, man. We did finish at our highs of the session. I would have never thought when we came in this morning that this would have been the trade and how we ended up.
I think back to what we heard from the Iranian regime and the idea that the retaliation would be proportional. And Scarlett, this doesn't seem proportional to the 14 bunker-busting bombs that the U.S. dropped over the weekend. So even though the president has said hopefully this is the end of retaliation, and investors maybe seem convinced of that, I don't know. I don't know what the future looks like. Nobody does.
Nobody does, and maybe this is the takeaway from today's trade. For now, there isn't going to be anything more than what we've seen, and they've avoided the worst outcome, right? There was no hit on any energy infrastructure. That's good news for now. Tomorrow's a brand new day. We'll wipe the slate clean.
You have to see what kind of rejiggering, though. We'll also see within positions if everyone was positioned for a very particular outcome, right? Those high oil prices, move into protection. Does that really shift? You got to shake out some of those positions now.
And then there is, of course, also the long-term worries. And I think General Wesley Clark hit on this at the top of the hour here on the close, this idea here that you still have to address what the Iranian leadership is going to look like, whether that means actual regime change. And if so, who's actually going to lead that charge?
Right, exactly. Really important point. It also feels like the ball's in Israel's court a little bit to stop the strikes. Like somewhere it has to stop, right, in order to maybe move to the next stage. a lot going on, guys.
Whatever that next stage is.
Exactly. To be continued. All right, that is a wrap. Across platform, radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals. We call it the closing bell. Alix is heading out, and of course, Scarlet and Romaine continuing there on television. Tim and I continuing on Bloomberg Business Week Daily. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow.